Hi, my name is Reece, and I didn't believe. So I didn't grow up in a Christian household. My parents are great though. They loved me so much. I mean, they were amazing. I had a great childhood, but they never took me to church, not even on Easter. So to me, God was nothing more than the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus. I just figured that people believed in God because it helped them cope with, the difficulties of life. As I started getting older, I started really struggling with, sadness and depression. I'm a very melancholic person, so I had a lot of difficulty just finding joy, especially when I didn't believe that there was any creator or higher power. I just figured, am I just a part of some cosmic accident? And I love science, and I always wanted to study cosmology, astronomy, physics, and that led me to really dive into things like evolution and string theory, the Big Bang, things like that. And I started wondering if there was any purpose or significance to my life or anyone else's. I just assumed if this is all it is, then that's such a sad existence, especially since most of the world is suffering. And so I tried to figure out ways to cope with it too. I fell into a pornography addiction really early on in my life. I started drinking and doing drugs. I blacked out more times than I could remember. I overdosed a few times in high school, but all the while I was still trying to figure out, what was my purpose in life? What was my significance? Like, who was I? So I just came to believe that after the Big Bang, this big cosmic accident, that from creatures in the sea all the way up to primates and then eventually into us, that is how we ended up here. And so with that understanding, it was hard for me to find any significance in my own life. Because if that's all I was just this accident, then, what was the purpose of living? So as I continued studying evolution and cosmology and physics, I even went to the point of getting a tattoo of evolution and the Big Bang Theory and an ion collision on me, because I just felt like that would just solidify that this is where I'm going, like this is my track. I enjoyed it, but I think deep down it was really a way that I could suppress any belief that there was something more to life than just this. I think it was a way that I could suppress that there was any belief that there really was a creator. And in a sense, it was my way of making sure Jesus was dead. So halfway through college, things started getting really bad. The addictions were getting worse, the depression wasn't going away. A lot of my friends were leaving. I got out of a really bad relationship at the time. And so I was kind of like at the end of my rope there. And I had one friend that I used to party with all the time, and he actually became a Christian a few years before, and we were already friends. So, it's just like, whatever, man, just keep doing what you're doing. But I, at that point, started to realize, man, there's something different about his life. And so I just asked him, like, hey, what really is it? Like, why don't you do this anymore? And he said it was Jesus. And I was like, okay, whatever, here we go. But he was like, man, just pray, because what's the worst that could happen? And so that was the first time I ever prayed, pretty half-heartedly, but I just said, God, if you are real, I need to know who you are, because this isn't it. And then I lost my job. Right after that, I lost my job, and I didn't even still believe, and I was like, oh, this is what happens, God, when I pray. Things get worse. But then a few months later, I walked into a store and they just hired me immediately. Someone had just left, no interview, nothing. And one of the same managers that hired me was the first person to tell me about Jesus and invite me to church. And again, what did I have to lose? So I went, and I thought it was weird, especially everyone raising their hands and singing these songs. After hearing the message, I don't even remember it, I just felt so much weight on my shoulders. And I was back as that scared kid, just trying to control life and trying to figure out what was going on and who I was. And I remember during the altar call, the pastor said, if anyone needs prayer, just raise your hand. That was my moment. But I didn't do it because I didn't want anyone to know there was something wrong with me. So I just stood there in a sea of 500 people. Just let the music play, worship team go, and as I was thinking of all this, the piano stopped playing and it just kind of snapped me out of it. I looked up and the pianist was staring right at me. And he walked off the stage and walked right to me. And he said, God just told me to pray for you. And I just lost it. Buried my head into his arms and was bawling. And that was the moment Jesus met me. And even though I didn't want to be there and I had all these doubts and these questions racing through my mind, he just embraced me with love and kindness. And it didn't matter what I was questioning. It didn't matter what I had said about him. He was just there with me. And I was so confused because you weren't supposed to be real. And especially since I didn't believe you, you weren't supposed to be here with me. But you were anyway. And as he was praying for me, I just felt so much relief and all this pain and baggage that I've been holding on to just falling off. After that moment, I just remember that I was so hungry to know who God was. I was so curious now. That was a moment that Jesus had invited me into this new way of life and this new way of living, following him and really getting to know how I can be the person that he had created me to be. This whole time I had been searching for purpose and identity and who I really was, and now God was showing me who I was supposed to be and giving me that choice to follow him into that. And I just wanted to find a way that I could get plugged in and use the gifts that God gave me to then serve the church and help other people encounter who Jesus was. And after a few years of volunteering with the media department, I became the video producer here at Faith. I met my wife here as well at The Voice, and now we have a beautiful 1-year-old. I just can't wait to be able to introduce him to Jesus and show him who God is. Because I know that if I love him the way that I do and how I've experienced the love of God myself, that God loves him so much more than I can imagine. And I just cannot wait to bring him up in a house that knows the Lord, that is a part of a church community. And I think life would have been so much different if only I would have met Jesus sooner. My name is Reece, and I believe in Jesus.